Hello everyone. Welcome to Youth Can Change the World. I'm your host, Nathan Bynum. Stay tuned for my conversation with Retta Laumann, high school student and accomplished actress. She has appeared many times on Wakefield's stage as well as at the Keegan Theater, the Chalice Theater, and Wolf Trap. She's also involved with Devising Hope, a theater workshop where street sense artists join high school students to create collaborative scenes and monologues highlighting human struggles, including homelessness and coming of age. By creating empathy through theater, she's changing the world. So Retta, it's a pleasure to have you on the show. Thank you for coming in.
Of course, Nathan.
So I wanted to first ask, how did you develop a love for acting? Where did it all start?
So when I was really little, not that little, maybe like 4th grade, maybe a little younger, me and my best friend Lily used to make little skits for our parents, just playing around. We even wrote a musical called Pink Sisters. I don't know what it was about, but we wrote a song about a rainbow, and it was interesting.
Do you still remember it?
I actually kind of do.
Uh-oh. All right, sing us just one verse, just from the rainbow song.
It was like, I see a rainbow, red, orange, blue. It was not a good song.
That's amazing. No, that was a good start. I definitely will be looking for that on the 8-track tape.
Oh, great.
So that must have delighted your parents, though.
They loved it.
I bet.
We loved it more, though. It kind of, when we got a little bit older, I think it got a little old for them.
Okay.
Because we used to, whenever we'd hang out, we used to make them sit down and watch us do like this. Once we made up a dance, I think, I found, my mom recorded it, and I found the video, and not going to use it for my college pre-screens, but we just say that.
So when you're famous, though, people will love it. It'll be a YouTube sensation.
Hopefully.
Very cool. So you've been acting for quite a while, and you've been doing it at all levels, not just acting in high school like I did, but you're actually acting with professionals now.
Yeah.
What are some of your favorite experiences with that?
So my favorite 2 experiences are actually this year. Luckily, it's been a really good theater year for me.
That's awesome.
So I did a show at Keegan Theater, which is a really, really great professional theater in DC with the sweetest people ever. It was a wonderful experience. Nice. So we did Parade. I don't know if you know about Leo Frank.
I actually just learned about that from you before today's show. but tell us about Leo Frank.
Well, Leo Frank is, he was a Jewish man in Georgia in the early 1900s. He owned a pencil factory, or he managed the pencil factory. And he was accused of raping and murdering a 13-year-old girl.
That is not a light play.
It's not a light show at all. It was really challenging. But he was falsely accused and ended up being lynched by a mob. So it was a very emotional show for me, especially because I'm Jewish, and I mean for everyone.
Yeah, I'm sure.
But it was really hard, and I played this little girl who testifies falsely that he touched her and 2 other girls in the factory.
Goodness.
So it was really hard to figure out her motivation for lying about it. So I ended up doing a lot of research into the Leo Frank case, and I actually found a lot of neo-Nazi propaganda from today about it.
That's disturbing.
It was, yeah, it was really, really disturbing. And at first I thought it was normal fact pages because it was things like leofrank.info or maryfagan.com. Mary Fagan's the little girl who was murdered. But it turns out that they're neo-Nazi sites. And actually the Washington Post just did an article about it recently. Yeah, those specific sites.
Wow.
I read it. It was really interesting.
Yeah.
But the actual sites themselves were really, really disturbing.
I'm sure.
But it helped me gain an insight into the minds of people who think like that. And even though the character I played was 12 years old, she was the youngest of the factory girls.
Wow. And
a lot of her ideas are based on her parents and based on the culture around her.
As often is the case.
Yeah. And we're lucky in Arlington I mean, I guess we're kind of unlucky because we don't necessarily get to hear a lot of outside opinions, but we live in sort of a bubble, I think. And in that bubble, everyone has similar ideas, and those are ideas of acceptance in general, usually. And I think that's really great, but we don't always get to hear outside perspectives. So learning about how they thought during that time and how people still think now was really eye-opening and really scary.
It also really tied what you were doing, this play about the past. The past hasn't really gone anywhere. I mean, it's still with us. We're still fighting prejudice today, and to see that so clearly in your research, that must have been quite
scary.
An experience. Yeah, it is scary.
It was also the most mentally exhausting show I've ever done, ever. The show is a long show, it's like 2 hours and 45 minutes.
Wow.
And it was just basically the second act. I'm crying the whole time. So every day after the show, normally we'd go out into the lobby and say hi to people, but I just wanted to lay on the floor of the dressing room and go to sleep.
I can imagine. Yeah, it's draining. It's emotionally draining. And I do street performing, and I feel like going to sleep after every show, and I'm not crying all the time, but I'm just making people laugh. But it's hard.
It's exhausting no matter what you're doing.
It is. So I'm curious, because this kind of leads to my next question. You know, this show is called Youth Can Change the World.
Right.
And you're talking about a show that, it's about the past, but it's also about now, because those attitudes still exist. And how do you think theater can help make a positive change in the world?
Well, I think that theater helps create empathy towards people and an understanding, because you're learning about whether the events actually happened or not. You're learning about a person's life or a moment in someone's life, and whether that moment actually happened, like in Parade, or it's made up or it's fictionalized more, it still can help you relate to other people and their experiences. And I think that, at least when I watch a show, I gain a really interesting insight into things that I may not have known before. And I think that the more that people know, the more of an impact they can make on the world.
Yeah, and I imagine watching the show that you're in about Parade, that show, watching it is different from reading a book about Mr. Frank.
Oh, absolutely.
And not that reading is also very important, I think, but people do remember theatrical productions in a different way.
Right, because you get to see the action played out, and if the actor is good, hopefully...
Which you are, of course.
Well, I hope so. If the actor is good, if the acting is good, and it's truthful, it's a different experience seeing a show live, in my opinion, than seeing a movie, because it's different every time. And the actor is really feeling the emotions and going through the phases that that character is. And you don't really get to experience that when you're reading a book. Although reading has its own great things, obviously.
I mean, it's a different way that you're experiencing. Yeah, you're actually seeing someone go through those emotions right in front of you.
Right.
Because as an actress, I imagine you're actually feeling the emotions of the character. You can't really fake it.
And that's why I did, at school we did In the Heights, which is one of my favorite shows ever.
That's awesome. Same playwright as who did Hamilton.
Yes, yes. So the last show, the end of the show is really emotional because my character's, the guy that she loves is leaving. And our last show was really sad because I got to be really good friends with the guy who played him.
Oh, wow.
And he's a senior, so he's leaving. So I was actually crying during our last song. And
you're supposed to be in the show?
And I'm supposed to be.
Oh, that's convenient.
Not necessarily crying because I had to sing too. So It was interesting,
Huh.
but it was definitely very emotional.
Real emotion on stage.
It was real emotions, yeah.
That's awesome.
Not for everything, because I'm not in love with him, but
Well.
it was really emotional.
Platonic.
Yes.
Yeah. That's awesome. That sounds like another amazing experience.
It was a really great experience.
So, I also understand that you've been doing some theater work with Streetwise, which is a homelessness advocacy
Street
organization.
Sense.
Street Sense, thank you. And it's called Devising Hope, this
Yeah.
program. Can you tell us about that? Because that sounds like a really interesting connection between
Yeah.
social activism and theater.
So it's actually, it's a program through ETC, Educational Theater Company, and Street Sense. So they work together and they connect students with people who have experienced homelessness or are currently without a home. And what we did was, it was 2 weeks over the summer in DC, and a few other students and I went into DC every day for about 4 hours. And we met at a church, and we got to interview these incredible people who've been through so much, but they're just like us. And I actually learned a lot from them too. Oh, and we interviewed them, and then we wrote monologues and theater pieces about what we learned about them, and they actually wrote about what they learned about us as teenagers.
Wow.
And our experiences.
That sounds really interesting.
It was very eye-opening.
So, when you say you're just the same, I mean, obviously you've had different experiences.
Right.
What's the same?
The same is we're all people, and we all experience the same, or not, everyone experiences emotions differently, but as humans, we all experience relatively the same emotions.
Interesting. So, sadness, happiness, this excitement.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And everyone experiences that, no matter where you live, no matter who you are, and everyone experiences the same love. And I really got to love these people. And it was, I was saying how I learned a lot from them. There's this one woman who ended up being like a grandmother to me, and she would always give us advice on life. And
What kinds of things did she say?
it was last summer. I don't remember exact things, but just like, keep doing what you're doing. You guys are amazing. Just inspirational things and
Very encouraging.
general life advice.
Oh, wow.
She was really great, and everyone was really great.
What was her story?
Her story, I don't remember exactly her story. The interesting thing is we didn't get to a couple people opened up less. She specifically didn't tell us her story, which was challenging. It was hard sometimes getting people to open up about really personal things.
Yeah, I mean, if you're winding up homeless, that's a very personal story.
Yeah. And I don't know if she was ashamed about it. Maybe part of her was. But a lot of the people that we talked to seemed not necessarily proud, but prideful in themselves for getting through a lot. And it was a really good experience, because a lot of the things that I go through in high school and every day they seem like big deals, but compared to a lot of things that other people have gone through, it just puts everything in perspective.
Sure. Yeah, that's inspirational in and of itself, to not get bogged down with dwelling on your problems.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is it's helpful for me as a person and as a student, so I can focus on the important things instead of the not so important things.
Sure. So I understand that out of these conversations that happen between the high school students and people who are experiencing homelessness, you guys create monologues and theatrical performances. Can you describe one of the pieces that came out of this work?
Yeah. So I wrote this monologue for one of the women it was called I think it was called The Hairbrush.
Mm-hmm.
So,
sounds like a good title.
Oh, it was a, it was a very, I don't consider myself a writer, even though I actually enjoy it a lot, and people really liked this piece that I wrote, which I was flattered, because I don't write that much. But once I get down to it, it's really interesting, but it's hard to get into it.
It's hard to sit down and do it.
Yeah.
You want to be moving and acting.
Exactly.
And all that. Yeah, that makes sense.
But anyway, so this piece was about, this woman told us a story about when she was little and how she got into a physical fight with this girl because she wanted to brush her hair. And
wait, because the girl wanted to brush her hair, or because
the girl wanted to brush her hair, and with this, I remember she said, this dirty, disgusting comb. So she went home to her mother and was like, "Mom, this girl's trying to brush my hair with a comb and I don't like it." And the mom was like, "Don't you ever, Patty, don't you ever let her brush your hair with this gross comb."
Okay.
So she went back to school the next day and was like, my mom says that you can't brush my hair. And this girl was like, "Well, that's not okay. I want to brush your hair." Ooh. So they literally got into a physical fist fight about this. So I wrote about that. And I think a lot of people don't see homeless people as actual people, or just as just part of the environment, kind of, but they're actual people with actual life experiences like us.
Absolutely.
So this piece, I think it was really interesting because it didn't talk about her being homeless or her experiences as an adult. It just kind of talked about a funny thing that happened to her. And we did a showcase at the end, and she read it, and she had a really unique voice, or she has a really unique voice.
Nice.
And just the way that she read it made it so much better.
That's awesome. Wow. So it was her experience that you had listened to, and you translated it into a monologue, and then she read the monologue.
Yeah.
So it kind of came full circle.
Yeah, it was really rewarding.
That's awesome. That sounds like fun.
It was.
What would you say the most challenging thing about creating empathy, creating social change through theater is? Because I know you do some of that, because you're creating empathy with homelessness and with people who've experienced that. You're creating empathy for people who've experienced prejudice. What's the most challenging thing about changing the world through theater?
Well, in terms of, a lot of it has to do with how you portray the role in terms of, like, in an actual show, in a performance. And creating a role that is, I keep saying truthful, but that's a big part of it. Making it truthful to that character, to you, is really, really important, and that's really, really challenging. And in doing so, you have to kind of strip away yourself and morph into a different person with different values. Especially in Parade, the values of the character that I played, everything about her was completely different than me. How she was raised, where she was raised, her like everything was different. So being able to create that truth is really challenging. And without that truth, an audience isn't going to connect to it, and the point isn't going to be made.
Did you come out of it feeling like you cared about the character that you played in Parade?
Oh, yes.
So
Very
the
much
one who
so.
was doing the
Essie.
false testimony.
Yeah.
Essie. Okay.
And I personally believe that no person, I mean, obviously there's some people who are psychopaths, and I don't think that people are inherently bad. So I tried to find the good in my character, and every show I found an extra piece that helped me relate to her. And so I made this thing where, I didn't make it, but I made a character choice. At the end of the trial, when she finds out that Leo is convicted of murder, and she lied about it, and she might be the reason he's going to die, my character has like a breakdown and basically like falls a little bit onto the railing. And I go over to my friends and I'm like, "He didn't do it. He looked at me during the trial and I could tell that he didn't do it." And that's that human guilt that people feel when they know that they did something wrong.
Yeah.
And even my character is a 12-year-old. I think she senses that. and she tries to change her friend's mind, and they're like, Essie, you are insane. He obviously did it. He's tricking you like he tricked Mary.
That's empathy. I mean, that's what you have to have for the character, every character you play.
Right.
You know, if it's usually a boring performance if it's just the picture of evil.
Right, and I used to, I remember I played a debutante, Hope Harcourt, in Anything Goes when I was a freshman. And I thought she was an annoying character, but then the next year I was like, wait, I shouldn't have played her like that because I don't think no one thinks that they're annoying.
That's
so
a good
if I
point.
played my character as an annoying character, even if the lines are annoying, even if she's kind of an airhead, I shouldn't think that about
You sound
my
so
character.
empathic. You're just an airhead. No. So what could you relate to in this debutante character?
I mean, when I was playing, I haven't actually thought about that role in a while. There's a song at the end, or during the end of the opening of Act 2, called Goodbye Little Dream Goodbye. And she's saying goodbye. I always play the love interest. It's really irritating. But she's saying goodbye to her love. Okay. Because he's sent to jail. It's a complicated story. But the man that she loves is sent to jail for impersonating. Oh, and she has a fiance. This person that she loves is a different person. So it was hard to. It was a very complicated show. It was a weird show, but it was a great show.
That's awesome. So what was it? Was it that moment that you could empathize with your character?
Yeah.
With like.
I mean, at that point,
love lost.
In my life, I haven't really experienced that. And even now, I'm 17.
You've never had a boyfriend who went to jail?
I have never had a boyfriend at all.
Oh, well, there you go.
My parents will be very proud of me.
I don't blame them.
But anyway,
So what did you draw on to show those kinds of emotions?
I mean, obviously, I've had crushes before.
Of course.
So I just thought back to ones where the feelings haven't been reciprocated. And that helped me gain that sense of sadness for that song. And also, I've found that with good songs, with good music, it's Cole Porter. He's a fantastic composer. Yeah. The music kind of takes you to the emotions, and the piano part and the whole orchestra helps you build the emotions. So I drew a lot from that during that song.
Nice. That's awesome. It is a collaborative work. You think about it as like top billing in the Academy Awards is always all about the actors and the actresses.
No, it's everything.
It's everything. Yeah, you're drawing on the composer, you're drawing on the musicians, the lighting, everything.
Yeah.
It all kind of comes together to hopefully create an emotion and a experience for the audience.
I always find that when I'm in costume, I'm just way more into character because during going back to In the Heights, my character dressed a lot different than me. She was kind of I don't want to say like a hoe. She was very different than me.
You really had a lot of empathy for this character.
I did, actually. I had to figure out how I could relate to her. And it was, that was the most challenging role I've ever played because she's the exact opposite of me. I think that I'm confident in terms of like kind of more on the inside, but she's confident with like how she presents herself and how she walks. So I had to come up with a completely different walk, completely different everything. And I actually started dressing like, not exactly like her. Literally for the show, one of my costumes was a crop top up to here and shorts like that and 5-inch heels.
Wow.
It was.
And you had to carry it off with confidence.
Oh yeah, and I had to carry it with confidence, which was challenging at first. And I had to dance in the heels, which was probably the biggest challenge.
All of that would be very hard for me as well.
It was hard, but it was really fun.
That's awesome.
So I had to I had to figure out how I could relate to her and her experiences. So I created a whole backstory for her about how her father left when she was little. And I couldn't really relate to that, but it gave me more of a sense of why she is how she is.
Right.
And also the way that other people treat her. She gets there's a song about how she gets catcalled all the time, but how she wants to just leave and go somewhere else. So I related a lot to her wanting to do something better and wanting her dreams. Her dream was to get a nice studio, get out of the patio. That's her dream, to go downtown and make a life for herself and do something better. And my dream is to go to New York and do what I love to do. So I I tied them together, and that was really helpful.
That's awesome. That's a connection that you definitely shared with that character.
Yeah.
So, in finding ways to connect with these characters that you play that you may not normally be into those types of personalities, do you find that it affects you in everyday life?
Oh, yes. Very much
Like
so.
if friends are talking badly about a character, a real person who might be similar to one of the characters that you've played?
It makes me very mad.
Yeah?
Specifically, if someone, I don't know, comments made about women and how they dress, that already makes me mad. But after playing this character who people call her bad names because she's pretty and because of the way that she dresses, not the way that she acts. And she's probably the strongest female character I've ever played because she's 100% confident in how she looks. But I also had to find the insecurity in her, which everyone has. But it's also, I think her confidence has helped me in my everyday life, and bringing that sort of exterior confidence, which is really important because that's how it helps how people view you. And just walking in the hall, it's hard to walk in the halls at school with your head high. I feel like everyone wants to look down and just kind of get to class and mind their own business, but it makes you seem weak. So from Vanessa, the character that I played, I learned to keep my head high and to how much you walk can change how people view you.
So, what advice do you have for others who might want to get involved with acting, get involved with Devising Hope especially?
Yeah.
Or any other types of theater activism?
Well,
what would you say?
I would say, if you don't already do theater, in terms of Devising Hope, do Devising Hope anyway. I think I was the only teenager there who acted, this is what I want to do, this was what they wanted to do. And everyone still benefited from it. And we did a lot of improv games. And I think that acting can benefit people as well, and not just in terms of like they're getting to be a better actor. I think people get to be a better person, especially with programs like Devising Hope. So just apply, just do it. It's wonderful. It'll change your life.
Yeah.
And
you may take on some of the positive traits of the people that you are acting as.
I mean, you
Of your
will.
characters. Yeah.
The positive traits, hopefully not the terrible
Hopefully not
ones,
the
like
negative
in Parade.
ones. Yeah. But even then, you can at least understand where people who are doing things that you find abhorrent, you can at least understand where they're coming from.
And I think it makes the hatred levels go down. Understanding people who think differently than you, and empathy, going back to empathy.
Absolutely.
Acting, a lot of people think it's terrifying going up on a stage, and I'm sure it is for many people. I don't really get stage fright. I just love it. But I would suggest just trying it because it can change your life. And I know a lot of people who just started acting this year and have decided that this is what they want to do. Even though it's a ridiculously challenging path, it's really, really worthwhile.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for being on this show.
course.
It's been my honor. And good luck with all of your future acting pursuits.
Thank you.
I hope you've enjoyed this episode of Youth Can Change the World. If you'd like to find out more about Devising Hope, check out their website. Until next time, support the young people in your life, because youth can change the world.